I'm Aryeh Schwartz along with Rachel Galligan, and welcome to the Winsidr show where it's all about the W. Almost every WNBA team is having early season ups and downs, and Rachel and I are here to update you on all the recent happenings. If you like our show, please consider joining our Patreon community, patreon.com/Winsidr. For less than a cup of coffee a month, you can directly show support for the hard work we do covering the W. And don't forget to see our amazing staff's written content over at winsidr.com. That's winsidr.com. And remember, downloading this episode makes our stats look better and allows us to continue doing this important work. Rachel is back, y'all. Great to have you back. From the depths of breaking news in the land of no cell phone coverage, it's great to be back in the booth with my co-host, my pal, my friend, Rachel Galligan, the GOAT. How you doing?
Well, that's quite the intro. I'm good. Happy to be here. Yes, I was off the grid for a while. Anyone who knows me knows I like to do a lot of outdoorsy stuff. And we take this trip every year, and it's a lot of fun. And it's become like the one trip that really everybody looks forward to, but it's like the worst time trip because it's right around the start of the season and I have to basically miss a whole week. So then I spend the next week really trying to catch up on everything. But here we are. I feel pretty good about what's going on. I feel like I got a handle on it. We got a lot of action last couple days, a lot coming up this weekend. So clearly a ton to talk about as we're kind of entering that phase where it's no longer early season, but it's like not the point where, we're in the middle of season. So you can really start to analyze stuff a little bit.
Well, exactly. And we're going to hop into that. Just a little fun fact for everyone. The WNBA is straight up streaking right now. We have 5 teams with a 3-game or more streak. The Storm have won 5 in a row. The Dream have won 4 in a row. The Mercury 3 in a row. And the Sky have lost 6 in a row. And the Fever have lost 5 in a row. And an interesting aspect, kind of to what you were talking about, we're past that early stage in the season where I guess it's that situation of, okay, well, they won 1 game and nobody else has played, or they played more games and have a good record. So especially with the way that the schedule was based this season, it's been really hard to kind of gauge where the teams are and who these teams truly are. And I think also with so much big name movement, it's been really hard and confusing. Just to run it down real quick, according to the standings on the league website, Seattle Storm in first place at 6-1, followed by the Connecticut Sun at 7-2. Then the Aces, the Dream, the Mercury, the Liberty, the Sparks, the Wings, Mystics, Chicago, Lynx, and the Indiana Fever. That's your standings right now. I feel like the hot topic we gotta dive into right now is your hometown, Rachel, the Chicago Sky. What is going on in Chicago as they started off 2-0 and have since lost 6 in a row? 2 of them, or more than 2 of them, but specifically the last 2 against the Mercury, just in heartbreaking fashion. Lose on a half-court lob from Kia Nurse 2 games ago. Then they were losing for most of the first half, take the third quarter and take the lead and blow, I believe it was a 13-point lead in the fourth quarter to take the game to overtime and lose by 3. What's going on in Chicago?
I mean, I think we could have, I don't know, we could have a lot of different opinions and a lot of different thoughts on this. I think as far as I see it, I mean, obviously there's a lot. There's a lot going on, to put it lightly. You've had so many bizarre roster changes and things that have happened, and numbers are down, and then Allie Quigley is back, Candace Parker's still out. You got the trade that happened last week with Dallas, Dana Evans. So it's to me, it's so helter-skelter right now that it's just obviously this team is not at 100% in terms of what we anticipate this roster being. I mean, Allie Quigley just came back literally last night. So, and honestly, I think she played pretty well. So I think there's an element of helter-skelter of trying to scramble together pieces to secure some wins early on in this season, which clearly isn't happening, but like you're coming that close. And this is a ton of adversity. And I think some of these losses, man, they're just heartbreaking. I mean, they're just really, really heartbreaking losses. But for me, I mean, I'm pretty vocal on it so far. I'm not hitting any panic button. I do think there was a phenomenal. I'm sorry. I'm blanking on who wrote it or who was talking about it. But Chicago is a franchise that has very little support. There's no assistant GM. There's not a ton of staff positions. Like, honestly, I'm gonna put it out there. What Chicago has been able to do and what James Wade has been able to do with that franchise, who historically really lacks a lot of resources compared to other franchises, I think is phenomenal. Now, that's not an excuse to say as to what's happened here the last couple weeks, 6 games, but it just like people need to remember, like, this is not, in my opinion, a top destination franchise from a resource perspective. So I think you have James Wade trying to put some pieces together, and there is a little bit of a scramble. You don't have your full roster. You don't have your former MVP, who obviously would make a massive difference. And this team is just, they're literally trying to piece it together at this point. And then on top of it, you've lost some heartbreaking games that you easily could have had. Now, we all know this roster is capable of. It's early in the season. I mean, what was it last year, 2 years ago? Connecticut started like 0-6 or something along those lines, and everybody was freaking out. I mean, it's too early to panic. I think it's just it's a really rocky start. I mean, understatement of the year. It's a rocky start, but this adversity from this veteran roster and with the leadership on this team is going to learn from these early losses, and these losses and these moments right now are going to further benefit them down the stretch. That's my prediction.
And let me just echo what you said. I mean, a lot of people are going to kind of scoff this, but you look at the history of it. I mean, there hasn't been big name free agency signings in Chicago. In fact, it's been the exact opposite.
Mm-hmm.
All the big name players, or maybe not all of them, but the majority of the big name players have made their way out due to their own request, however you want to put that, if that's the team-friendly version or the player-friendly version, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of great players have left the Chicago Sky, and I think that was part of the reason of, besides the story and whatever, bringing Candace Parker in was a huge accomplishment for this team, for the simple fact of bringing an MVP player, a superstar player, to want to come and join them. Yeah. Doesn't matter where she's from, to be quite frank. Mm-hmm. Like, a player's not going to say, oh, I'm from Oklahoma, like some random place that has a G League team, so I'm not going to play in the majors because I want to play in a G League team. That's not how it works. So I completely agree with you, and I completely agree with giving James Wade a lot of credit for this. I just want to say this as someone who's a big James Wade fan. I like the candidness of the post-game interviews that he does, where he'll take fault for when he feels that he caused issues.
Well, that's a good point. That's a good point. We live in a world now where it's constant blame, right? Like, push the blame on others. And that's one thing I love about James Wade. First off, I think he takes losses extremely hard, even harder than most. And I think he internalizes them really hard. But he'll take ownership. The comment he made about Diamond DeShields and like, I let my energy get dropped when she missed one shot. I mean, I just really respect that from him.
Yeah, and because most coaches will talk about the gameplay or whatever, and I like when a coach says, "Hey, look, we can talk about the players, and yeah, there's things they could have done better, but let's not sit here and pretend that I was perfect. Sure. Nobody's perfect. And let's talk about yeah, you were right. They have a ton of injuries. They've had, because of that, they haven't had the roster that not only they expected, that we all expected. I mean, Candace Parker's played one game, guys. Mm-hmm. Allie Quigley has barely seen the court. Steph Dolson has been MIA due to the 3-on-3 Olympics. And, with all of the hardships that they had to go through, and I'm using like the roster signing, like, yes, they've gone through hardships, but I mean, in the roster sense, they were just in a situation where it ate into their cap space, and they were not, if they kept Shyla, they were not going to be able to bring on a veteran player who they really needed to kind of stop the bleeding. And I think the timing of it, you kind of look at it and you go, oh, wow, they're sputtering and they're just, trying to pull the parachute and grab onto anything. But I think realistically, a lot of these moves were thought of before some of these losses happened. Like, realistically, GM James Wade had to have said a few games ago, like, hey, we're going to have to make some moves because of the current situation, and bring in, a vet. And a lot of people are going to go, oh, well, Shiloh's a rookie and Dana Evans is a rookie, so how does that work? It if you go to her hoop stats, or I think Richard Cohen has a good breakdown of it. If you look at like how the pricing works for people's base salaries and whatnot, it is affected and it is slightly different having Heel. So basically, the team had to make a decision of having Dana Evans and a vet, or having two rookies. That's essentially what it came down to, from my understanding, just looking at the numbers and everything. So, tough break for the 19-year-old in Heel. She'll be around. She's not, she's maybe going back to Australia, but she's not going anywhere in the sense of the WNBA sphere. Let's talk about the Phoenix Mercury, though, because they're an interesting team. They're a team that I have questioned. I'm going to throw something out there. I want your insight on this, Rachel. I've questioned, how they're going to gel Diana Taurasi, Skylar Diggins-Smith, and Brittany Griner. But something that I didn't account for, that has actually really hyped me up, is when Diana Taurasi went down with the injury, it put them in a situation where I always felt that Diana and Brittany meshed in a certain way, not to the best ability of both players, but they meshed in a good way, right? Mm-hmm. And then when you brought Skylar in, it was almost like Skylar and Diana meshed better, playing-wise. I'm talking completely playing-wise. But now having Diana out of the picture, I feel like has given an opportunity for Skylar and BG to start meshing in a way, and for other players on this team to step up in ways that, honestly, they just weren't able to with Diana Taurasi on the court because of the attention, and the gameplay that, the game that you're going to run through her. Mm-hmm. And granted, I think a lot of people might jump back at me and say, well, Aryeh, Diana's injured all the time. That's been one of my criticisms, honestly, is not having that secondary ability of Diana not being there in this team to succeed. What are your thoughts on the Skylar Diggins, Brittany Griner combo, and how they've been able to pull off a streak of 3 wins, 2 of them in Diana Taurasi time? Forget Dame Dollar Sign time. Like, we're talking Diana Taurasi time, right? Overtime, final shots of the game. This Mercury team was able to pull off Diana Taurasi wins without Diana Taurasi.
Well, and there's moments in that third quarter in particular where, like, they lull out, and you're like, what's happening here? Or they're not. I mean, my big thing is the whole rebounding numbers. I was going nuts last night. I'm always looking at rebounding numbers. It's like an obsession. But they lull out, and you think, oh man, they're going to lose it. But it's so weird. It's like they just find ways. They find ways to make a quick run, to stop their opponent's run, to somehow pull it off in the end. I mean, God, honest to God, I think the X factor, no pun intended, is Kia Nurse right now. She's playing phenomenal for the Mercury. Obviously, that buzzer beater half court shot was phenomenal, and obviously got a ton of attention. But I think Kia Nurse right now, with Taurasi out, potentially with Taurasi even in, I don't know, is the X factor for this team. Although Skylar Diggins is playing phenomenal, I like the combo of her and Griner. As always, when Griner's motivated to be the most dominant player in the league, she can do that. I just really think that Skylar's playing with a chip on her shoulder that I don't know. She's on a different level right now, and that's what is going to end up making this Phoenix Mercury team. But she has to have the right pieces around her. So whether that ends up being Taurasi and how that meshes well is we still kind of have to see, I think, more. But right now, this combo of Griner, Nurse, and Skylar Diggins-Smith is, again, they're just finding a way to get it done. It's not always the prettiest in the world, but they get it done. And they're doing just enough down the stretch to stay in games and to make the right plays. And it comes down to that crunch time, right? Like the final, whether it's the overtime, whether it's the final couple minutes, how are those possessions? And there's moments where, like, they're flinging the ball all over the gym and you're like, they're literally trying to throw this game away, but still somehow they're able to make enough right plays to pull a game out. I mean, again, they're not blowing people out. This isn't like a dominant force team by any stretch, but man, they are winning close, gritty games at the end, which on the flip side is what Chicago has yet to figure out how to do.
Well, and that's what I was going to say also is, like, we can have our issues with the Chicago Sky, right? They definitely threw away to a degree. Maybe that's a harsh term, but like that first loss to the Mercury, they had opportunities. They missed I actually, you know what? No, forget it. Looking at both the games, they threw them away in the sense of they had large leads and they weren't able to hold on to them. But even if you just look at that last minute of play, or even the last offensive possession for the Sky in both those losses, they got shots off. Were they, high percentage the best shots that they could have gotten? Maybe, maybe not. But they were getting looks that were. It's not like it was a broken down play and the team just collapsed. They got shots. They didn't go in. So I think while the Mercury can look at those games and say we're building off this because we're able to pull off these victories. Skylar Diggins said 100%. I agree with you. 100% about you and I could do like 50 episodes about BG and her drive or motivation. But yeah, Kia Nurse. A lot of people didn't think it was going to be as big of an impact when she came over there in that trade.
I think she's a great fit. She's a great compliment to on the wing. It's great. I really like it.
Honestly, like as of now, I'm trying to think. Might be biggest impact trade of the offseason right now. Obviously, if you're talking offseason signing, I think we would have to all agree it's Benai Jelani.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I mean, the way they're playing right now. Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about while we're on teams that are losing, we can't not talk about a team that's been high in discussion. So I'll be honest, Indiana Fever not looking good, and I was on a pick'em streak. Sometimes Rachel and I do pick'em in our Slack channel with the whole Winsidr staff. We've been doing pick'em every single game so far, and I had started off horribly because I like to play a little risky, right? I'm not putting money on this. So if there's a game that I see a lot of people picking one team to win, and I think it will be closer, I'll pick the other team, just to kind of even the odds. It screwed me over last season in pick'em with Rachel, but whatever. But Indiana Fever, I picked them to beat LA last night. Last night, they got mopped by LA by like 30-something or high 20s. I mean, it was bad and ridiculous. And honestly, looking at the game the whole time, going into the game, I was thinking to myself, basically all the bigs besides Amanda Zawi are MIA on LA. So if the Fever is smart, their Tierra McCowan's going to drop a 50 stack. Completely opposite. I mean, the team barely hit 50. What's going on with Indiana? And I put this out in a tweet last night, and I want to ask you your opinion on this. Is it coaching? Is it GM? Or is it the players underperforming?
Well,
what do you think?
I mean,
putting you on the spot.
Maybe all the above. I'm going to be honest. I mean, it's just bad. It's bad. Everything is bad across the board. The one thing that was so alarming, I was watching so intently last night, was the lack of engagement of the players on the floor. I mean, it was literally like they were guarding the LA Sparks just a layup line. I mean, I can't remember how many times the Sparks got it into the lane and were just laying it up with Fever players, letting them blow by and watch. To me, there's massive issues going on in the locker room. There's massive issues going on between the staff and the players, potentially a disconnect. Again, this is my opinion. I don't know any of this for a fact. I just see a team that is not engaged, not on the same page, not buying in. The players just did not even seem like they wanted to be there last night. And so that's not a knock necessarily on the players. It's just a bigger representation of something much larger. It appears to be a play. I mean, they were not interested in playing that game last night. And I'm with you. I really felt like I'm looking at the lineup and I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be an interesting matchup right now between these two teams. It's going to tell us a lot. Potentially Indiana, I mean, could have stolen one from LA, at this point. And then if that were the case, say they came out, they were engaged, they were putting out effort, they wanted to be there, they played well, whatever it might have been, and they end up getting a win, we're having a different conversation. We're thinking, okay, Indiana showed us what they're about. And instead, it wasn't even a close game. Like, to get mopped by close to 50, 45, whatever it was, I would have never expected that to happen. I really thought it would have been at least a game worth happening. So to me, it's not even about X's and O's. It's more than that. There's some massive issues taking place in the Fever organization, and I hate to be so harsh, but that's what I see.
Well, and I'll echo what you're saying, and just so the clarity, if anybody's kind of trying to clap back at Rachel here, like she's expressing this from what she's seeing watching the games
Right.
from afar. She's not saying she's in the locker room or she has a sort like everyone knows Rachel has sources. We're not getting into that right now. What she's saying is like we're all seeing this, right?
Yeah,
And
I
for a
literally
long
mean, like I'm watching a team that just is not engaged right now, and so when I
well, and let me say, like back to the original question, right? Is it the GM, the coach, or the players underperforming?
it's hard to
For
say. You know, it's
me,
hard to say when you're not in the locker room. You don't know what's taking
yes.
place, but you know you have to assume it's a little bit of all of it. You know.
Well, what I was going to say is you look at this and I think it's easiest to start with the players. And if we can all agree that the players are underperforming, which I think is a fair statement to be made just looking at who's on this roster, right? Like Kelsey Mitchell has underperformed throughout her career. It's easy to say. Tierra McCowan, Lauren Cox, like all these players, yes, you can give reasons for why, but compared to where they were drafted and what was really expected of them, they're underperforming. And when you look at that, then it kind of trickles up, right? If we're starting on the bottom with the players, it trickles up to, okay, well, is it the GM who made mistakes with these drafting picks? And I understand we're talking about a legendary player, but I always feel the need to say this. Tamika Catchings being one of the greatest WNBA players of all time, if not the GOAT, does not make her a great GM. And honestly, it's been kind of disappointing to see a lack of criticism where I feel like it's rightfully due. Like, it's nothing personal about her. I think she's an amazing person. But if she keeps picking the wrong players and making the wrong moves, and also, if you look at the salary cap situation, they've tied themselves to these players and this roster for the immediate future.
Well,
so it's not like, it's a team that says, okay, I know we're going to be bad this year, or I know we're going to struggle this year, but we're going to be able to turn it around because we're doing, contract wise, we're not tied to this, whatever. They're tied to these players. And then if you're, going up that same direction of starting with the players, it goes to the coaches also, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they're disengaged, it's a coach's job to find, like, the biggest thing is, or maybe not the biggest thing, correct me if I'm wrong, Rachel, at any point, but a huge aspect, a huge percentage of what a coach's job is to motivate the players.
Sure.
A coach isn't going to magically make me Rachel's height and me have Rachel's post moves, right? I mean, like, you can learn them, but there's certain things that you can't teach. It has to be about the coach motivating the player to be playing the best basketball they possibly can and putting them in those positions.
I think there's a disconnect between the coaching staff and the players. There's something major I see there. I'm not seeing a bridge or someone who can even relate to the players. Like, I think that's something that's fascinating to kind of pay attention to some degree. Another point I want to go back, sorry to interrupt. You've got 2 lottery picks the last 2 years who played a combined 10 minutes last night when you got waxed by 50. Like, why aren't we playing them? That, like, what? At least let them play. I mean, you literally chose these players as, like, your top pick, and, like, they're just on the bench. So that is mind-boggling to me to some degree as to why, Lauren Cox, and again, I know she's just kind of getting back into it, and Gondrzik, why aren't they playing a little more? That's interesting to me.
Oh, 100%. There's so many head scratchers of, like, is there a disconnect between the coaching staff and the players? Is there a disconnect between the GM and the coaches? Is there just a complete disconnect? I don't know what it is. We're not in there. It's COVID time. We can't, sneak into the arena and watch these practices and get a better understanding. But I will say, last year, this Indiana Fever team was not playing well, and they beat the Seattle Storm and made for one of the greatest WNBA post-game interviews of a coach of all time. So maybe they pull off a win soon and we get another entertaining post-game interview.
Well,
Speaking of that,
I will say real quick, every team has, like, that moment every season where they, like, hit that rock bottom and they have got to do some serious gut check time. If it's not now for the Fever, it's going to be a long season. That's all I want to say.
Oh, totally. And I feel like that gut check moment, like, some teams have already had that, right? I feel like I don't know, the Washington Mystics have already had that gut check moment. I feel like the Minnesota Lynx have had that gut check moment. Heck, even the Atlanta Dream have had that gut check moment. A lot of these teams have already had them, and maybe it's not the gut check rock bottom moment, but it's definitely, you see some of these teams, and I feel like the Chicago Sky are in or around it, right? A gut check moment isn't going to immediately turn losses into wins, but you'll see a difference in body language, in style of play, and maybe you'll still get, waxed by 20, but it will look different how you get waxed. Moving on to the other side, team that's been doing really good, the 6-1 Seattle Storm on a 5-game win streak. They lost only one home game. They're 4-1 at home. It's pretty impressive what they've been able to do to plug and play people into their system.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a little bit easier when you have MVP caliber players like Jewel Lloyd, like Brianna Stewart, like Sue Bird. They're an interesting team. What are your thoughts about the Seattle Storm and newly appointed head coach Noel Quinn?
Shout out to Noel Quinn. Awesome. Again, I mean, they're playing really well. They're plug and play. They're doing Seattle Storm things. I think tonight will be interesting with Dallas. Dallas is a team that is just going to be like that gnat, right? They're going to like cause headaches for every team every single night. They always say there's no easy wins, right, in the WNBA, but like they're going to be tested in a way I don't think they've been tested quite yet this season. So I'm really anxious to kind of really analyze tonight and for both teams. But again, I mean, yeah, Seattle's playing really, really well. I'm not going to say I'm surprised by their start, but I mean, I expected them to be in the top 3 at this point in the season. So nothing more to really say besides they're playing well.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I've been impressed in their ability, like we both said, to plug and play people into the system. I do think that that maybe, and then tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like there hasn't been that same. I don't know. I'm going back and forth on this. I can't decide if I feel like people are as high up on the Storm as they have been in past years. I don't feel as high up on them. I'm staying with my preseason predictions of not seeing them as the top team, the top dog in the league. I still got some other teams that are on par with them. When, let's say, in past recent years when they've had a full healthy roster, it's been pretty clear that they're the best team in the league. I don't think that's the case this season. It'll be interesting. But another fun team to talk about is the Las Vegas Aces, and there's a specific reason that we're not talking about the Connecticut Sun. You'll hear in a new episode coming out soon.
Support for the Winsidr Show is brought to you by Manscape, the best in below-the-waist grooming. Manscape offers precision-engineered tools for your personal space. Manscape just launched their 4th-generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right, 4.0. Join over 2 million men and women worldwide who have trusted Manscaped. With this exclusive offer, you can get 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code WINSIDR20 at manscaped.com. I'm one of the first to try the new Lawnmower 4.0, and I'm blown away by the performance. The craftsmanship and detail are next level. Manscaped engineered the ultimate body trimmer by focusing on intelligent, functional, and incredibly comfortable grooming experience. Their 4th-generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. I now feel confident in safe shaving, and so will you. The Lawnmower 4.0 even allows you to customize your trim through additional guard lengths, sizes 1 through 4. And did I mention wireless charging? The new wireless charging system helps the battery length last longer. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code WINSIDR20 at manscaped.com. And trust me, you won't regret this.
Las Vegas Aces. I mean, can we pat ourselves on the back? I mean, we didn't originate this theory. We've expressed this theory. A'ja Wilson and Liz Cambage on the court at the same time has not been the most productive of lineups for this team. And A'ja has looked her best when Liz hasn't been on the court. Is this team doomed to be a top team that can't get over the hump to win a championship because they have too many superstars?
I don't think so. No, I don't feel that way at all. Actually, I feel like my concern of Asia and Liz on the court, a year ago or whatever, a couple years ago, whatever it might have been. It all blends together at this point. Is not. I don't feel as strongly about that, or as worried about that. I think we're starting to see them really mesh well together and feed off of each other. I mean, obviously when Liz Cambasia is not on the court, it's Asia time. But last night, Asia Wilson did what she does. She throws a team on her back and she goes to work. And Liz played a little bit more of a complimentary role. It's going to change night in and night out, and I think they're starting to understand what those matchups look like and how they exploit them. They're just so freaking dominant. And I really think this team has the pieces to go win it all. They've got the players. I still feel like Jackie Young is such an integral X factor for this team to be able, can she take that jump and stay consistent? But no, I don't think this is a team that they should go win it all. If they can keep the 6 inches between their ears right, they can go win a championship.
Oh, I agree. I was posing the question because I think it's a fun question to pose. I think they are getting better. And anybody who hasn't listened to postgame last night, it was a really insightful postgame. Props to the PR guy, John Maxwell with Las Vegas Aces. He does a great job of just having Coach Bill Laimbeer just, kind of give his opening statement, his opening thoughts. And side note, as a media member, I've enjoyed it because it makes him just be in a better mood for when you ask questions. But and media members know what I'm talking about. But the interesting aspect of the post-game press conference, and I apologize for going long on this. We just, Rachel and I get chatting WNBA and go on a 5-hour rant. Was what you were talking about, is that understanding of sometimes it's going to be your night.
Yep.
Sometimes it's going to be somebody else's night. And that's what we see. I mean, we can talk about super teams in the W, right? The Minnesota Lynx, the Houston Comets, the Seattle Storm, the LA Sparks, even the Washington Mystics. When these teams have won championships, all these teams are winning it with 3 stars on their roster, if not more, right? Mm-hmm. And the key has always been is understanding that when you join a team like that, and I stress this all the time in Slack conversations and personal debates about, who's the greatest players of all time and whatnot, it can't just be, oh, you're the person who has the highest stats, whatever it is. You need to understand that some nights it's going to be Jackie Young's night. And Asia Wilson and Liz Cambasia are going to have to do the non-statistical things, right? The 50-50 balls, the playing intense D, hands in the face, things like that. Those are the moves that are going to win you a championship, and not saying, oh, Jackie Young isn't the superstar that Asia Wilson or Liz Cambasia is, so she shouldn't be taking the stardom for this game. It's finding what's the weakness of the team, even before game or during the game, and being able to exploit that and talk about that and figure out how the team can take advantage of that. And it might mean Kelsey Plum. It might mean Dearica Hamby. It might mean Chelsea Gray. Whatever it is, that's how you win a championship.
Yep.
Being selfless.
Yeah. And I really think they're doing a good job. I know they've lost 3 games. Again, some movement on the roster. Kelsey Plum has been in and out. She's still getting her legs underneath her. But I see a team that, is doing a good job of accepting roles and not ever changing every single night. I think there is a level of consistency here. I really shout out to Raquana Williams. I think she's doing really well. She's a nice addition to the Aces, and talk about a player that I really feel like accepts her role immediately and fits in with this roster extremely nicely. And obviously Chelsea Gray has been one of the best point guards in the league and has been playing really, really well. So I like the addition of Raquana and Chelsea with this team. And I love Angel McCoughtry. I'm heartbroken that she's hurt, but I don't think the loss of Angel makes this team any less of a contender. Not to change subjects, but what I'm seeing is kind of a team that has a level of consistency from their core in the front court, and really, they're. Why not? This is the year above any others where they should go win a championship. So I see them mixing really well together right now.
real quick, I'm not going to get into it now, but we're going to end the episode on this because you brought up Angel McCautry. I brought this up on Twitter. It's a fun, exciting, maybe cheeky, maybe jerkish. I don't know, whatever. Just, if you get a chance, look at the 2011 top players. Tamika Catchings won MVP that season, losing almost twice as many games as the Minnesota Lynx. Angel McCautry led that season out of, in my opinion, looking over the stats. She was a player who should have been in consideration for the MVP nod. It's just an interesting exercise to kind of play revisionist history, to look back at an award given out and try and understand why that award was given out. And I think the 2011 MVP trophy or MVP award, Tamika Catchings, might leave you with some head scratching. Does it affect her legacy? No. Does it, in my opinion, was her legacy probably one of the reasons that she won the award that year? Probably yes. Am I against that logic? Yes. But interesting thing, it would be a fun one to do a debate. We'll have to get like Curtis and somebody else to join us. And although he'll probably say, no, I listen to podcasts, I'll go on it.
Aryeh is just out here trying to stir the pot today. So I apologize for everyone who's pissed off. This is just, you must have woke up in a good mood today, ready to just call interviews.
Just, all I will say is if you look at the stats.
It is interesting. It is.
Exactly. That's all I'm saying is, obviously, I'm not going to lie. I'll be completely transparent and upfront. The reason I started it was I was like, damn, how did Simone not win an MVP award? And I started to look through the seasons, and I was like, damn, 2011. I mean, she was balling out. 29 minutes a game, 50% field goal percentage, 41% from three, 86 free throw percentage, 16 points a game, some other crazy stats. And I was like, okay, let me start looking at it. Now, I will say, coming out the other end, after I did that deep dive into the rabbit hole of it, I do think, maybe I'm biased, I feel like it should have been Tina Charles or Simone Augustus who won the award that year. Probably I could assume that the nod would go more towards Tina, but I just thought it was interesting that Simone didn't even get any MVP votes that season. That was the interesting aspect for me. Lindsay Whalen got the Minnesota Lynx votes that season. And, food for thought. Think it over. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tweet at me. Don't DM me. Tweet at me about why I'm wrong. So that I can become Twitter famous and get that blue check mark. Rachel, as always, appreciate you. Excited for this next episode. We're going to be recording later today, hopefully, if everything works out. And we'll have a special one, a double up day on Friday. Rachel, have a great one.